So I was going to ask, who wants to lead us in prayer to open up the meeting? How about you, Carol?
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight to think and do the right things, not only for our county, our state, but for you, Lord. We ask you to guide our thoughts, guide our words, Lord, and be in your best, our best interest to be with you, Lord. Bless this congregation, bless the people here, bless our soldiers, foreign and domestic. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Commissioner Karen, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So everybody knows we have video minutes on our website, actual video of the speeches, and on our website. We do not have April and May because we had technical difficulties. I'm still working on trying to figure that out, but I think Trey may have April. Anyway, June we didn't have them. June we have. June's up there. It's up there today. Our first speaker of the night is Representative John Hardister. John represents Guilford County in the state legislature. He's also the majority whip, and he is a candidate for Commissioner of Labor. So if you please welcome John Hardister.
All right. Thank you very much. How y'all doing? All right, cool. It's good to be back here in Granville County. How much time do I have, Mr. Chairman?
How much time do you need?
Not a whole lot. I had a 1-hour speech, but I can shorten that down for you. I don't want to put you all to sleep.
Make motion adjourned.
Motion. Second. So, well, thank y'all for having me. I guess I'll just talk briefly about what's going on in the legislature. Right now, not much at all. We're a little bit in a recess right now, is what you might call it. We've reached kind of what you might refer to as the kind of the end of session. And as usual, we've hit a little bit of a snag with the budget, which is not really a bad thing, because when you're dealing with a approximately $30 billion budget, you want to make sure you get it right. And so that's where we are. The House and Senate are trying to reconcile the details of the budget. There's some things that have cropped up here lately regarding tax policy and the gaming, VLTs, the video lottery terminals. Even casinos are in the mix now, being discussed. And so that's something that we're all working on. As you can imagine, there's a variety of opinions on that. Another thing, too, that we're working on now is we're trying to get these veto overrides done. And, of course, we do have a supermajority. I think the first time I came here to visit Granville a few months ago, we didn't have a supermajority. We're one seat short, but we have that now by virtue of the fact that we had a member, of course, that switched parties. And just a brief word on that. What happened with Representative Tricia Cotham was completely organic. She was a Democrat, but was a moderate Democrat. I know Tom Murray, you served with Tricia, and she was in the House some years ago, and she was fairly moderate, a good member to work with. Then she left the House for a little while, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, but went through some life changes, became a single mom, and became a little more moderate, even conservative leaning, and came back as a as a Democrat, and then decided to change parties because she was voting with us on some things and voting her conscience, as you should do, and then was being berated by the Democrat Party. So finally she said, I've had enough. And she had death threats. I'm not exaggerating. She had death threats. She had all kinds of, vitriol directed towards her. And so then now we have a supermajority. But the thing is that we have a supermajority right on the number. So if we're one member absent, then we can't override a veto. And now we're in the summer where, believe it or not, legislators actually have a life outside of politics. And I know it's shocking to believe that. I know. It's unbelievable. But, you know, with the kids out of school and grandkids out of school, there's a lot of them traveling, and we have members that are like in Rome right now, and England. I'm kind of jealous of that. I mean, I enjoy being here with you all. But we can't override the vetoes until we get everybody back together. So we're kind of looking at maybe next week, and some of those override votes coming up. One of them is a bill that would protect women's sports. I don't even know why we have to do this, but we do. Like, this is legit. It's something, something we actually have to deal with. The debate that we had on this thing was almost shocking. I think we had maybe 2 or 3 Democrats vote with us on it, but we actually had a couple of the ladies that were victims of this come to the General Assembly talk about. One was Riley Gaines. I'm sure y'all heard of her. But one lady I've become really proud of is a young lady, high school student, Peyton McNabb, who's from the western part of the state, played volleyball and was injured by a transgender player, male, pretty tall, pretty strong, spiked the ball, and had a concussion, and still is having some issues with that. And so this is real life stuff that we're talking about. And then when we debated the bill, I even used myself as an example. I said, I'm 40 years old, and I probably should stop because my knees are going to get hurt, but I run competitively. And every time I run in these races or do 5Ks, they bifurcate gender. And they also have different classifications for age, because I'm not as fast at age 40 necessarily as I was at age 20. Last race I was in, I won my age category, and I finished ahead of every female, even though some of these females are less than half my age. And it's not like just because I'm a male, it's just biology, it's science that we're dealing with. Another subject is one that prevents doctors and medical clinics from providing gender transition surgeries and hormone therapy, things like that. Again, the debate on this was, Mr. Chairman, it was basically insanity, because you can't get a tattoo till you're 18. You can't enter into a contract. There's a lot of things that you can't do, and but here we are. That this is something that apparently some folks think that a child can do. Even some of the more liberal members of our society, like Bill Maher, for example, who's been a little bit more to the left, probably more libertarian, made a statement. He said, "Look, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pirate, but I'm glad my parents didn't give me a patch eye and a peg leg." This is really what we're dealing with now. So that's one. We have another bill that we're working on, a veto override, the Parental Bill of Rights, which makes it so that a parent has a right to see the information that their children are being taught in school. So that once a semester, all the information, the textbooks, any learning material is made available for the parent. And in addition to, for example, if a child wants to be called by a different pronoun or something, just notify the parent. That's all we're asking here. Well, the governor vetoed that. Governor's also vetoed bills related to school choice. And my position on that is the more choice that parents have, the better. And when you hear the hyperbole from the governor that you can't have school choice and support public schools at the same time, it's not true. You actually can. And when we pass a budget this year, it'll have an increase in funding for our schools. It'll have an increase in pay for teachers. And by the way, folks, most teachers are good folks. I know you have the NCAE, you got the teachers union, but they're losing membership. I think a lot of teachers are realizing they're not looking out for us. They're not looking out for the kids. So I think we're going to see some changes there with the power of the so-called teachers union, because parents have woken up. You all have woken up. You're not woke, but you're awake. Clarification on that point. But yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Is there any talk in the General Assembly about making our state Board of Education seats elected?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. So we have a bill. I'm actually a co-sponsor of that bill. So here's what we're looking at doing. It'd be a constitutional amendment, because we have to change the Constitution. But currently, you know how your local Board of Education is elected, right? Well, the state board is not. I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have gone there, because I know about that. But theoretically, well, the state board is appointed by the governor, and that's not always great. what seems better, in my mind, is so that voters have a direct say. So the bill that we have would make it so that we would have districts, and what we could do is mirror them with the congressional districts after we draw them, and then you could actually elect a member of the Board of Education. So I want to see a show of hands. How many of you feel confident that if you reach out to the State Board of Education that you would get a satisfactory response from them? That they're actually, they're accountable to you? They're not. So I think, again, the idea is to change the ethos there and make it so that voters and citizens have more accountability measures, bring education more closer to the parents, what that's all about. I'm really glad you asked that question. So that is a constitutional amendment. The other constitutional amendment we're working on is that would make North Carolina a right-to-work state in the Constitution. We are a right-to-work state statutorily, but what we've seen in other states like Michigan is if, God forbid, Democrats get back in, they can repeal that. And look, I'm not a union hater. I think unions have a role to play, but I think you ought to have a choice whether or not to join a union. You should be forced into it. You should be forced to pay dues if you don't want to. And that's something that, it's worked well for North Carolina, because look at all the jobs that are coming here. We were rated #1 in business by CNBC, and it has nothing to do, the governor's trying to take credit, but it's because we've cut taxes, reformed the tax code, we've reduced regulations, we invested in workforce development. I'll wrap it up here, and I'm happy to open up for questions too, but just a quick word on the labor commissioner race. How many people know what labor actually does? It seems like most time when I give a speech, I have to, Tom Murray's running for attorney general. Y'all know what that does, and I think y'all know how important that is after seeing yes, you get the picture in the elevator. That's it, and see it. I brought it. This is it. Yeah, and you could draw a mustache in the picture. It won't bother me at all. But yeah, so the department deals with occupational safety, with OSHA, with inspections, not just for elevators, but escalators, mines, boilers, quarries, amusement rides. Do you remember the issue at Carowinds where the roller coaster had an issue, a crack in one of the beams that holds up the ride? Yep, and yeah, the vaccine thing too. So yeah, and that's another important one, because when that order came down from the Biden administration, which is unconstitutional, and that's the reason why it's held up in litigation, Commissioner Dobson had the ability to choose whether or not we're going to, carry that out. And of course, he didn't do that. And then that's also why we need an attorney general that's going to fight that kind of thing. Because like if I'm the commissioner of labor and the president has an order like that, I'd like to call attorney general like Tom Murray and say, let's fight this thing, right? It's an infringement on state rights. And then also another thing too, the commissioner of labor is an executive office, because in a lot of other states, the commissioner is appointed by the governor, but here it's elected. It's important. So you could have an issue such as the Federal Department of Labor could recommend that, well, when it's hot outside, you have to curtail hours as far as how many hours a day that you can work outside. And this actually did happen in some blue states like California, where in certain areas it gets really warm, and I think it's 85 degrees, which that sounds kind of nice on a day like today. But the federal government said, well, if it's 85 degrees above, you have to curtail the hours so much. And true story, some of the workers who were told stop working, they stopped working, they're playing soccer. This actually did happen. But that's something that our department won't do that. But when you have a Democrat in the office, they'll never see a regulation that they don't like. Another thing too is that the Council of State has the ability to reject overreach from the government, if the governor, I should say, if the governor wants to shut down businesses again, shut down schools again. So we were able to change a law on that, because you remember the governor had the state shut down for an inordinate period of time. Now, if the governor does that, it can only be for 30 days. After that, it goes before the Council of State. And I can tell you, I won't vote to shut a business down. I think that should be a private choice. And I will never vote to shut a school down, because we're still trying to play catch up from the learning loss, that came out of that. And then, of course, after 60 days, it goes to the legislature. So we've handled that, because that was extremely frustrating. There was a loophole that then Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest was trying to fight. Unfortunately, it didn't work, because the way the statute was written, it allowed Governor Cooper to keep the state shut down. But that's another reason why the Council of State is important. Finally, I'm going to close with this. Workforce development is key, and that's critical. I was just talking to Commissioner Dobson the other day, and this is something that his his department has worked on. Department of Labor has, as the name implies, it relates to labor. The commissioner serves on the Board of Education not the Board of Education, the Community College Board. So you have 56 community colleges across the state, and you have multiple members who serve on that board. One of those is the Commissioner of Labor. This is something that I'm very passionate about. So my mom and dad, for example, did not go to college. My dad went into the financial world, was able to work his way up without a degree. My mom went into real estate construction. She actually owned a construction company, one of the few females that did that, and she did well with it. My older brother owns a construction company. He does pavement, concrete, asphalt, things like that. And these jobs are important. They're important for a lot of reasons. Number one, who's going to do your electrical work? Who's going to do your plumbing work? Who installed the floor up here? Who did the carpet? Because I guarantee you, they probably make pretty good money. What about the advanced manufacturing we're trying to bring to the state? Like, we have companies coming in like VinFast, Toyota, Wolfspeed, all these companies that they pay well. And I'll tell you a quick story. So the other day, I ran into this young man. I'd guess he's like mid-20s. And he says, Representative Harsher, I want to thank you for the apprenticeship program that y'all have with the community college system. He said that I did this program where at age 18 I graduated high school, and I went to work as an apprentice with Machine Specialties, which is in Whitsett, not far from here. It's about an hour from here. It's over where I live, right off of Interstate 40. And he said, for 2 years I worked as an apprentice, and I went to class at the same time, and I graduated with no debt, and I got a job making $75,000 a year at age 20. And then he said, my wife is a public school teacher. We got married about a year ago, and so she makes around $50,000 a year, somewhere around there. So together, they're making a pretty solid six-figure household income, and they have their first child on the way. Those are the people that the Republican Party stands for. That's how you make a country strong. And who knows? This young man who does welding, he may own his own company one day. Because here's the thing. If you are an electrician, which I have a really good friend who's an electrician, he worked under someone else under their license where he owns his own company now, or even landscaping. If you want to have advanced manufacturing, you got to have workforce development. And I'm all for the university system, and we need that. But you've got to have vocational skills. You've got to have trade skills. It's important. They pay well. And we have to start teaching these kids about the opportunities starting back even in middle school. We're talking about getting plumbers, electricians, welders, truck drivers. Go to school. Talk to these kids. Tell them about this pathway. So this is something that we're really going to advocate for in the Labor Department. And this week, I'm extremely honored to have the support of Commissioner Dobson. He's come out and endorsed us to take his place. He knows that we'll be ready on day one. Josh Dobson's a really good friend of mine, and we've talked a lot about it. And I had to pray about it before deciding to do this. Tom Murray knows what I'm talking about. I'm watching the miles in my car go up precipitously. This is a big state, but I love this state. I love the people in this state. And I've worked in the private sector for over 20 years, and and now have over 10 years of experience in state government, so I get how that side of it works. And Commissioner Dobson knows that we'll be ready on day one. It'll be an honor to serve. It'd be an honor to be the nominee, and I'm excited about the opportunity we have coming up this year in North Carolina to keep this state red and make it more red. We've had some interesting times here, some close elections, interesting times going back to 2008 when Obama won this state. That's really what kind of propelled me to say I can't sit aside anymore and just let this happen in my state. And now, because of you all, guess what? We've got a supermajority in the House. We've got a supermajority in the Senate. We've won most of the statewide elections in the last two election cycles. And critically, we now have a conservative majority on the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, and there's no way to overstate how important that is. Things like voter ID, I don't know about you, but when I go to vote next time, I'm looking forward to showing them my ID. Amen. And by the way, we're dealing with that. And we're dealing with that little loophole thing. Did y'all see that thing? Like you could check a box, say we've talked to the Board of Elections. They're being told they're going to take that out. And if they don't, that's something we're going to pass legislation, because we've had plenty of time to put this law into place. And finally, common sense prevailing, and the court is upholding the actions of the legislature that were clearly constitutional. So, Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any, or any commentary or words of wisdom you want me to take back to Raleigh.
Well, before you're elected, could you work on the ETJ thing some more, please? Yes.
We're talking about to abolish ETJs? Yeah. So I'm not a fan of ETJs at all. If that comes up for a vote, I will vote to.
You got my vote.
We have an issue in Guilford County where there's a town that has an ETJ and there's a developer has property and the people are trying to sell the property. And the thing is that if you live in ETJ, you don't have a vote on the council. You can't vote for mayor. You can't vote for who serves on the council. So it's really, to an extent, it's anti-democratic, right? But I understand there's maybe some benefit to it, but I'm just not a fan of it. I think maximum accountability for the voter is the way to go on that. So that could come up again.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. What was that?
No, he is not.
You're not managing the town?
No, you're not managing.
Oh, I'm not, okay.
He's managing a town that
Yeah.
wants ETJ.
That wants an ETJ.
And I
Okay.
kept praying you'd take care of it before it came to us.
Well, let's say this, so one more thing. There's kind of two ways to handle that. One is you abolish all ETJs, which I'll be candid. That's one thing. The second way is you grandfather the ones that are there, but you make it so that no more ETJs can be created. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Thank you all, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, our next guest, Tom Murray, he is running for Attorney General for the state of North Carolina. Tom served in the House, and welcome, Tom Murray.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you again in Oxford. I did the first jury trial in Oxford post-COVID. So does anybody remember when the courts were shut down? Do you remember who the Chief Justice was that did that? It was not a Republican Chief Justice. But fortunately, not only is that Chief Justice no longer Chief Justice, you sent that person to the House when you elected Ted Budd to the U.S. Senate, okay? Because she was Chief Justice, shut down our courts, and then ran for U.S. Senate, and you made sure that she did not. But I can tell you, as an attorney, as a prosecutor, having the courts open is your constitutional right. And aren't you glad that you've elected constitutional originalist judges in the state of North Carolina to uphold voter ID and to uphold these things? You did that. You did that. Now, if you think it's important to have a majority of conservative originalist judges on the Supreme Court and have a majority of conservative originalist judges on the Court of Appeals, wouldn't it be nice to have a conservative originalist attorney general advocating before those judges? Well, my name's Tom Murray, and I'm running for North Carolina Attorney General. I've got my campaign manager with me here, Henry. Henry's going to be a fourth grader, and we have a gift for everyone who would like one. This is an American flag. So when Henry was 6 months old, and you can hear this story, if you go to jointom.com, that's my website. So I'm going to ask for audience participation. What's the name of my website? Jointom.com. Man, you got a great group here. Jointom.com, there's a 2-minute video on the front page. It's called Who Do You Serve? I grew up the son of a Baptist preacher. My mom was a school teacher. I was raised to serve the Lord first. Serve the Lord first, and then serve your community. And that's a big part of why I ran for the town council when I was in law school. I served in the North Carolina House with Jimmy Crawford. And that's a reason why you'll see in the video, when Henry was 6 months old, I joined the Army National Guard as a 37-year-old father of 3. I could give you a sticker with my name on it. This is my calling card. Whenever you've been, and I've deployed to the Middle East, you go to a place that might not agree with America or the principles that America. It makes you look at the American flag a little different. I'm willing to give you one of these to put on your car. And all I ask in return is that if you put it on your car, just take a picture of it, find me on Facebook, and tag me and say, Tom Murray gave me an American flag. He cares about America, America first. He's a conservative candidate for Attorney General. He's got my support. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. You're helping me advertise. But what you're also doing is when you put an American flag on your car, the more people see the American flag, the more they vote Republican. So you'll watch that video on jointom.com, and you'll see a little more about my story. But the basis of that video, who do you serve, is based on Joshua 24:15. Choose you this day who you're going to serve, but as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. The other thing you're going to see on jointom.com is the theme of the campaign. And this is what I'm going to do when I'm your Attorney General. It's based on Micah 6:8. We're going to act justly. We're going to seek justice. When there's a victim of a crime, we're going to do our best with our criminal justice system. As broken as it might be, or as many flaws as there might be in it, it's still the best criminal justice system in the world. And we're going to seek justice to try to make victims of crime whole. But we're also going to love mercy. And that's what I've been doing as a prosecutor. Did something fall off? As a prosecutor, we have to seek justice, act justly. We also have to love mercy. And sometimes when I'm dealing with an addict of drugs, the prison's probably the worst thing I can do to that person. And we have a statute in North Carolina. It's called North Carolina General Statute 90-96. For a first-time offender charged with a drug offense, if you're willing to be on probation for a year, not get any new criminal charges, stay clean, that means you're testing negative for drugs for that year period, and report to a probation officer over that year, we're going to dismiss that charge if you keep your nail. And I call that skin in the game, right? Now you've got an incentive to get on the right track, and as a prosecutor, I'm willing to give you that chance. Love mercy. We haven't had a prosecutor in the Attorney General's office in over 20 years. Can you tell a difference? Have you heard an Attorney General speak to you as I'm speaking to you right now about the criminal justice system and how we do our job? I think it's important that we have a veteran and a prosecutor as Attorney General. My name is Tom Murray. I'm running for North Carolina Attorney General. I hope you'll go visit my website, which is jointom.com. There we go. I'm telling you, you're a quick group. You're a quick group. And so what I would please, let me see if you have any questions. I can tell you the main things that I'm focused on in the campaign, the fentanyl crisis, stopping the flow of drugs across our open southern border into our communities, causing havoc one overdose at a time. Every month in this district, we see at least 1 or 2 overdoses per county per month, and amongst criminal defendants. That's just tragic. It's just so the fentanyl crisis is something I put high priority, and also election integrity. When I was in the North Carolina House, I sponsored the first voter ID bill. So I sponsored the first voter ID bill. The Obama administration sued the state of North Carolina, and Eric Holder's Department of Justice subpoenaed my legislative email. So I'm battle tested when it comes to election integrity. This is personal to me, and I'm glad to tell you we're going to show a photo ID for this year's municipal election. This year. And my advice to you is, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of advice. You need to vote on the first day you can with your photo ID. Because once you show your ID and you vote, then nobody else can vote in your name. You got that right? Is that right? The second thing, if you're working polls as an observer, and you see someone without an ID cast a ballot, track that provisional ballot. Don't let that ballot get counted without that person making sure that person proves who they are. Okay? And so I'm asking you to serve as that poll observer and watch those provisional ballots for people who don't have IDs. But my name's Tom Murray. I'm running for North Carolina Attorney General. It's a pleasure to be back here, and I'm glad if anybody wants one of those American flags, Henry will be glad to pass them out. Just raise your hand. He'll pass them out while we ask some questions. Here we go. There we go. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Emphasize this year, you're gonna have to show voter ID.
In the municipal elections, yes, sir.
Does that mean you're somewhat concerned it will stay entrenched in North Carolina voting?
Yes, sir. Once it's a requirement starting this year. Starting this year. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is a requirement that starts this year for this municipal election, and it is a requirement. It is a requirement from now on. Good question. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Do we know if the boards of election are going to be required to train the observers or the poll workers on that specific issue as far as if somebody tries to vote?
For provisional ballots, yes, ma'am. So that the question was, what's the training for the folks who work the elections? There is a form, and that's what part of what John Hardister was talking about. There's a form out there that is being circulated by the State Board of Elections, what to do if someone tries to vote without an ID and casts a provisional ballot. And one of the check boxes on that form currently is, I didn't know it was a requirement. Well, I can tell you that's never worked for me in traffic court, right? So if you come to me, if I'm as a prosecutor, if you come to me and your defense is, I know I was going 55 and a 35, but I didn't know it was a 35. That's not a defense for me in traffic court. Now, I might be willing to work with you, and you might be able to do something to earn a reduction, but the I didn't know defense is not a good one, and it shouldn't be one for voter ID. Okay? And so I'm glad to hear Representative Hardister talk about the State Board of Elections removing that, because I believe it violates the law that was passed by the legislature, by the way. We didn't have that as an option. I didn't know was not an option when the legislature passed voter ID. And it wasn't what you, exactly, and that's the other part. When you voted for it, when the millions of North Carolinians who voted for voter ID as a constitutional amendment, you didn't say, well, let's put it in the Constitution, but if you don't read the Constitution, you can go ahead and vote without an ID. That's not what you voted for either. And that's not what I sponsored when I passed the bill. Yes, sir.
I've heard that the voter ID requirements, there are so many exceptions, it's almost as if you don't need an ID. What's going on there?
That's one of the arguments that you're hearing about that exception is that what I call the catch-all exception. I didn't know it was a law. You can cast a provisional ballot. You don't get your ballot counted automatically. That's why you can cast a provisional ballot.
But that's just one example. There's other examples.
There are other examples. The person still has to come back within a certain time frame, with a photo ID, or the ballot doesn't count. A government-issued photo ID, like a driver's license. That's what's required. There's a lot of passport of work, military ID. I can tell you my military ID. I love pulling out my military ID because it forces them to understand that we got veteran population here too. So, but yes, the question was what type of photo IDs and what are the exceptions to the photo ID. And there are certain exceptions, but the person still has to come. If you lose an ID, or for somebody over the age of, I think it's 70 or 72, there's an age limit. So, for example, if you were issued an ID at age 70 and you're age 80 and didn't have it renewed and it's expired, that would be, because it has to be an unexpired photo ID. But we made an exception for the elderly folks who aren't getting their driver's license renewed and not driving anymore. Well, I can tell you, most 70-year-olds look a whole lot like what they do when they were 82, so that's one of the exceptions. We allowed for an exception for expired IDs for folks over a certain age. That's one of the exceptions. I think that's kind of reasonable, actually.
There is a state ID that is not a driver's license.
That's correct.
That you can get food stamps and use that without a driver's license.
But what's the goal? What's the ultimate goal of voter ID? It's to prove that the person who is casting the ballot is who they say they are. And so if you're 80 years old and have an ID with the same address, the same name, the same date of birth, and it just happened to expired a couple years ago, I think that's the person that's casting the ballot, and that was the reason for the exception.
Yeah, Tom.
I've got a backup. I got backup here now.
Just to sort of tag team on what Tom is saying here, so we're looking at tightening up what type of IDs can be used. You know, like an official ID that came from the DMV, the Board of Elections, which to your point, you could get one for free. You know, if you don't drive, you can still go get one. If you say I need one to vote, they're not gonna charge you for it. Or like a military ID, I would trust that, right? But as far as the question.
A lot of the questions come about student IDs. I mean,
Yeah, student IDs, yeah. And I'm not very comfortable with a student ID. But to the point Tom's addressing a moment ago could be like, let's say this were to happen, it's election day, right? And this could actually happen, it sounds far-fetched, but it could happen, is, let's say someone stole your wallet and had your ID and it's election day. You could go and you would not fill out a typical ballot, it'd be a provisional ballot. But then within like a week after the election, you have to go to the Board of Elections and present your ID. And then your ballot be counted. You know how when the elections are over, they're counting provisional ballots? That's what it would be. But if you don't follow up, you know, within a week with your ID, they won't count your ballot.
that's correct.
Because that could happen. You know, it could happen to one of us that go vote on election day and
Lose your license, yeah.
yeah, I mean, so one time I was at the gym working out and my locker thing broke and someone stole my bag, had my wallet in it, you know, a few years ago. But it could happen, something like that on election day. You don't want that person to lose their right to vote, but an ID needs to be presented before that ballot is counted.
And so that means there's follow-up. But my advice to you as the county party for Granville is to watch those provisional ballots. They shouldn't be counted if that person doesn't prove who they are. And that's the spirit of voter ID. And that's why I worked on it. There are no comments about race that were found when Eric Holder subpoenaed my email. It was all about election integrity and trying to make sure, because I can tell you, how many people have worked the polls and seen somebody come from a state, you know, the first time they vote in North Carolina, they came from a state like Pennsylvania that requires voter ID. And I'm voting from the first time in North Carolina, and they come in, they've got their brand new, shiny North Carolina driver's license, and the enterprising election official says, put that away. We don't need to see that. Wrong message. Well, that stops this year. That stops this year. Good. Thank you very much. One more question. Yes, sir.
One more question, and it has to do with the Board of Education.
Okay.
You talked about their training for poll workers and election workers. I'm sorry, Board of Elections.
That's great.
If you have never sat in on one of those, you need to sit in on one of them, because I have, and they are worthless. It's absolutely terrible training. They need to beef it up. It's incorrect, it's incoherent.
And that's conducted by the County Board of Elections?
The County Board of Elections, and I don't know, I think they get it from the state.
Got it. So they get a canned presentation from the State Board of Elections.
I'm not even sure they've got the presentation they're following, because it just scatters all over the place.
Well, maybe.
My daughter was a judge
Okay.
up in Oak Hill precinct, and she was not a chief judge.
That's concerning.
In the last election, but she came to me, I was sitting there beside her watching the training for the poll workers, and they had only training for the chief judge.
Chief judges are not specifically trained.
Right, and so she asked me, she said, well, what do we do about this new tabulator we've got, which is the voting machine? So I said, I'm with the North Carolina Election Integrity Team.
Yep.
organization.
Yep. And Cleta Mitchell.
We had a video up there that we got from the manufacturer that showed you how to operate the machine. I said, watch that video. Sent her up to their site. She watched the video. When she got to the polls the next night, she was the only one that could start that machine up and shut it down.
Well, you are confirming some reasonable suspicions that a lot of us have about the current state of affairs at the State Board of Elections. I can tell you, we had a great director for a long time. Her name was Kim Strack. She was lights out. And when she got fired, that was a bad day for election integrity in the state of North Carolina, in my opinion. And the current you're confirming some suspicions that a lot of us have about the current state of affairs with the State Board of Elections. But I can tell you this, Jason Miyares, who's the Attorney General for the state of Virginia, he's actually an attorney he was out of Virginia Beach. I actually teach a couple classes for Regent School of Law, which is based out of Virginia Beach. One of the things he's done as Attorney General in the state of Virginia, he's established an election integrity unit within the Attorney General's office. I think that's an excellent idea. I look forward to patterning that and working with Jason Miyares' office in our bordering state to have something very similar to that in the Attorney General's office, Department of Justice here in North Carolina. It's the Department of Justice, not the Department of Politics. Yes, ma'am.
One thing that we did in the county that I previously lived in, our Republican Party, the county election did their training for everybody. Then, that day, afternoon, or the next day, our county party did our own training. So that if there was any questions, then we were able to answer that. And so it was a more in-depth training that the county, it wasn't swayed one way or the other, but we did that probably about 20 years actually. The county party had their own election training for the observers and the poll workers.
I think that's a great idea. You've got to know what the law is. You got to know what the law is, and you got to know what your left and right limits are. And Mike, I'd be glad to partner. You have any questions about elections? I was on the elections committee when I sponsored the first voter ID bill, and one of my favorite days in the legislature was on the first day of the elections committee. They handed us a book of statutes of just election law, the book of election law. Mike, this is a good day. We're starting with what is the current state of the law in elections in North Carolina, and what can we do to improve it? Yes, ma'am.
So currently, in election law, there's no consequences for a county board of elections leaving an elected office off of the ballot. So that would be something that I would really like to see.
Okay.
Because I personally don't feel that voters should have to hire an attorney to recuperate their right to vote for their elected officials. So that would be really awesome if we
Are
could
you
do that.
familiar with what happened in Alabama?
We don't have to talk about it. I'm just saying,
I'm vaguely familiar that they have refused to appoint a vacancy. That's my understanding.
an entire state was left on the ballot in 2022, and there has been no consequences.
And so there is no representation for that seat. Is that right?
There is a person sitting there,
The
the
person
same person.
that was appointed should have.
Been up for real. I got you. That's for some reason.
But what I'm
Got
saying
it.
is, like, according to election law, like, there's no legal remedy for that on the record that we
Got
can
it.
find, so.
Got it. No, I think dereliction of duty is something that I'm very familiar with in the Army. We prosecute that as dereliction of duty is something that is a violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and it also should apply to elected officials.
Regardless, it seems to me that the Board of Elections at the minimum should be held accountable for not knowing. They asked the Board of Education if that seat was up for how could the Board of Elections not know that that seat was supposed to be on the ballot? That person's appointment had ended.
That's a.
Thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me know that. Yes, it's a pleasure to be. Yes, sir. Tim Karen's got one more.
Yes, legislatively, they say that justice delayed is justice denied. We had a corrupt sheriff in this county who's been sentenced for some of his crimes, but he's also been charged for many others. And the prosecution out of Wake County is dragging their feet on it, and it's falling through the cracks. And this county is in turmoil because people still think that he didn't do what he did, and it needs to come to trial so he can have his day in court, and then he can serve for the crimes that he committed. So it's one thing that when prosecution is delayed and FBI is involved and there's FBI's involved and we're all just sitting here waiting to see what the other shoe's gonna be,
Yep.
that's a tragedy.
I completely understand what you're talking about. I can tell you when you are dealing with the State Bureau of Investigation, you are at a little bit at their mercy. And I can tell you as a prosecutor and somebody who's cross-examined lab officials from the State Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab, I can tell you I don't like waiting on a lab report or information. And I can tell you there's one crime lab here, one crime lab in Western North Carolina. Being at the Department of Justice as a prosecutor is going to change how we do business. And we are going to get information back to our prosecutorial districts. So I don't like the excuse we're waiting on the SBI or waiting on the crime lab. Like, you know, we can make the wheels of justice move faster if we can help prioritize what's important and what needs to be prosecuted. But last thing before I leave, I'll say I served with Representative Crawford when I was in the North Carolina House. I'm so glad to hear that you're running for the town city council here in Oxford. When it was time to override a Democrat governor's veto, now I think Representative Crawford is now a Republican, but when he was a Democrat and he served with us in the House, when it was time to override a Democrat governor's veto, when we didn't have a supermajority, Jim Crawford was one of the people we went to on common sense issues like tort reform. Tort reform and caps on non-economic damages would not be the law in the state of North Carolina but for Representative Jimmy Crawford. He was so... I'm saying that from firsthand experience. I worked on that bill, and I was part of the team that asked Representative Crawford, what can we do to earn the support of foreign Democrats to get this bill passed? And I'm extremely encouraged to see your name back on the ballot, sir. I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks. One more question? What your position is on sex trafficking of children?
I'm against it. But let's unpack that a little bit. So I can tell you, I learned something from the Attorney General from the state of Florida. Has anybody heard anything good that happened in Florida recently? And Florida's kind of turning into the model of conservative thought, right, for states, a laboratory of innovation for how we can get after problems. So the Attorney General for the state of Florida, she partnered. This is not a law that was passed, mind you. We're not talking about a law. We're talking about a partnership. The Department of Justice and the Florida Chamber of Commerce. They have a 100% club. Now, what is that? 100% of your employees are trained on the signs of human trafficking at the counter, at the retail establishment, at the gas station, at the McDonald's, at the Dick's Sporting Goods. If you get your employees trained, you're going to get recognized by the Florida Department of Justice. And what that does, because cops can't be everywhere, law enforcement can't be everywhere, it turns all of us into eyes and ears watching for human trafficking. Is that not a great idea? Isn't that, and so I can't, and this is, North Carolina has been absent when it comes to fighting national fights with other conservative attorneys general. And I'm looking forward to partnering with the 28 other conservative AGs to stop Washington from reaching into your pocket, from reaching into your business, and reaching into your family's lives on dictating what you can do. The 10th Amendment means something. When states band together, we can fight Washington and stop that overreach. And I can't wait to be your Attorney General to partner with those AGs across our country to get after that problems just like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Good seeing you.
Yes, sir.
So our next speaker needs no introduction. Representative Jimmy Crawford.
Well, there are 4 of you in here that I didn't know. It's interesting that most of you from the southern part of the county, you want to know what my major accomplishments were. I have 3 of the greatest children you ever saw. They are all successful and they all have great families. I'm so old that under guard was not even in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So I've been around a while. Did Tom get out of here? I wanted to thank him. Good gracious. It's unusual for a Republican to talk about a Democrat like that. Yeah. But the rest of the story is when Brubaker ran for Speaker, there were 3 Democrats that made him Speaker. And there were 3 of us that voted for him, and that was the first Republican Speaker in 100 years. So it's been an interesting life, I've told them so many times in Raleigh, when are you guys going to get as conservative as I am? But anyway, that's the kind of guy I am. I'm looking forward to being on the city council. I served on the city council in the 60s with the grandfather, one of the candidates is running this time. But it's been an interesting trip. I've had a wonderful career, and I have a lot of insight that I can bring to the city of Oxford. And there are only 700 and some Republicans registered in Oxford. We're going to try to cure some of that. But I need every Republican vote to win this election, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
So our next candidate is new to politics. She's not new to these meetings, and she's not new to us. She's a good friend of the Republican Party, and we are super excited and enthused that she has decided to throw her hat in the ring. Please welcome Debbie Ramsey.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be here tonight. The little mic? Can you hear me now? I want to thank Mike and the executive committee for inviting me to speak tonight. I bet you're surprised to see me, right? Yes. I'm shocked. If you're not aware, there was one other person running for the mayor position, and I think it was 2 hours before the filing office closed, and I showed up, and I filed. And the reason for that was because, the reason for that was because I thought voters needed an option. So, man, I can't believe I took the step, but I did. So my friend and cousin and partner in crime, Joan, is there taking videos. She's my campaign manager, and she's working me really hard. She told me tonight that I must speak slow, I must speak loud. She's a former teacher. I must enunciate, and I'm sure she's grading me now. I had a prepared speech, and I just say, phone. Anyway, I just want to say that I am so honored that it appears that I have your support. It took a lot to do this. It was a lot of praying and praying and praying, and self-meditation, self-reflection, and, you know, this was a lot for me to do, I kid you not. But I think it was the right thing. My goals are to improve communication between the city board and citizens. My other goal is to put a major focus on safety because of recent crimes. I think it's incumbent that the mayor step up and take action. I'm really interested in reinvigorating the Neighborhood Watch program. Really want to get involved with citizens and make sure they understand. And do some education. As a nurse, you know, education was my thing. So I'm really looking forward to not being so much involved with board issues, but actually getting out into the community and being the mayor for everybody. Maybe I should refer to my notes. You know, I think I've said enough, but I just want to thank you, and it's like a home here. I see so many faces and smiling friends, and I know I can support, I can have your support, I'm sure. You put me right after all of these polished politicians.
I don't know if it's a compliment or not.
Somebody told me that they're not a politician, but only politicians say that.
In the legislature, we make 13,000. Someone called me a career politician the other day. I'm like, we make $13,000 a year.
Yeah, if I'm elected, I'm going to go right to the board for a raise because I'm probably going to have to work 50 hours a week to do everything that I'd like to accomplish. But one other thing that I want to talk about is I'm really interested in working with all of the boards and commissions and everybody that's involved to try to facilitate Oxford Police being able to supply school resource officers to every school. So that's a big goal, and I think we can do it, and I think we should do it. So, exactly, yes, exactly. Any questions? Please, no. Oh, thank you. Yes. You know, I'm sorry. You want me to get to it? No, really. You know, as mayor, I have absolutely no authority. But, you know, it's always a good campaign promise that I'm going to fix the roads. But I can say I have reached out and contacted the state folks to see how they can help us. So it's always a good thing to be able to say, huh?
Debbie, y'all don't have any local roads, do you, in Oxford? So probably all state maintained.
No.
Do you have local roads?
Oh, yeah. Have you been to downtown Oxford?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the town does actually have a DOT, like locally?
Oh, you mean maintenance?
No, I think, I'm pretty sure they're state. They're all state.
They're probably.
No. No, I think
But
more,
the ones we're talking about, the main street.
some of them, yeah, you're right. So can that be an issue that we could get help with?
Absolutely, yeah, you could reach out to, well, probably Frank Sossaman.
Yep, we have,
Matthew Winslow.
we have, and Bodie as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yes, you know, I think we're all open to whatever questions that you have for the board, and we're open to finding solutions. So, vote for me, support my campaign. Yes, ma'am. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And how about you, Vance? Exactly.
And I said this outside, this is something that I truly mean. No one is going to outwork Ed Duran.
And Joan Robertson.
And, you know, with Joan by our side, they are a force. So, you know, I think Oxford is going to see a lot of it. And, hey, I'm there for you.
Thank you, I know that. That it? Joan, how did I do? Did I get an A?
So the next person that we would like to, what's that? Did I spell it wrong? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll fix it. I'm so sorry. I spelled her name wrong, but I know her very well. It's my friend and yours, folks, Commissioner Georgiana Kaczynski.
I know everybody thinks I'm blind, but I don't need an extra eye.
Get it?
Got it? I don't run off the cuff, so I had to write everything down, so bear with me. My name is Georgiana Kaczynski. I'm currently a commissioner in the city of Creedmoor. I'm also seeking re-election in the upcoming municipal elections. Some may say municipal elections are not important, but I disagree with that statement. Our city police department depends on us. Our recreation department depends on us. Our public works department depends on us. And most of all, our citizens depend on us. Making our city more appealing to new businesses and developers is a goal we strive for every day. Safety, convenience, contentment of our citizens is our job. The closing of Hawley Middle School in the county and converting Creedmoor Elementary School into Hawley Middle in the city limits puts added traffic concerns on our citizens and those just passing through. Remember, Highway 56 is a main thoroughfare between US Highway 1 and Interstate 85. It is used quite a bit for not only residential, but commercial traffic. And it will impact the residents of Creedmoor during the opening and closing hours of the new Hawley Middle School. But with the cooperation of the Granville County Board of Education and the DOT, the city has worked together with all parties to try and find a way to cause less impact on our citizens. With the help of the current board members, we will begin streaming our meetings in August, which is something that I campaigned for 4 years ago. So that will begin at our next August meeting. In my first 4 years as Creedmoor Commissioner, I was appointed to the Seguasa Board. There I was elected as a vice chair and served on the Finance Committee for all these 4 years. And I'm proud of the work that our board has done for our customers and employees. We've completed the renovation of the water plant, completed a hydraulic model of the water lines that the Creedmoor City left behind to help with all repairs and any water insufficiencies that they may have. The hydraulic model identified broken chemical input equipment at Lake Rogers, which is to be replaced soon. It's never worked in the city of Creedmoor. They bought it, they paid for it, they never plugged it in. So the hydraulic model identified that, and that's going to be replaced. And when I first joined the Finance Committee, I asked for a rate study to be done. We had residential rates, and we didn't have commercial rates. Everybody was paying the same rates. Commercial companies can write off their water bills. Residents can't. So I asked for a rate study to be done and determine if there was any way we could lower rates or find another way to help our customers. We have a lot of seniors that are solo seniors. Our minimum water bill was 2,000 gallons. People weren't even using 1,000 gallons, but they paid for 2,000. So we got Reftelis to come in. They did a new, they gave us an estimate for a new study. With the blessings of our board, the study was done by Reftelis, and I'm proud to say that a new rate structure went into place July 1st, and it will provide a cost savings to many, many, many customers. I just hope everybody appreciates it. You know, I have decided to run for re-election this year because there's still much more to do in the city of Creedmoor. Cleaning up Main Street to make it more eye-friendly for businesses and customers, that is something that I've wanted to do for 4 years. And I'm going to focus directly on this process. And with the board that we have in place now, and hopefully the board that will survive this election, we are all on the same page with this, and I think it can be done, and it will be it'll be successful 4 years. Not everyone will agree with the hard decisions that a board has to make. Mayors, commissioners, and county commissioners and school board members, hard decisions. Some people might like them, some people may not. But hopefully, in the end, they will see that mayors and commissioners of our cities take steps to do things for the greater good, for the best interest of the city for today and many tomorrows. It is difficult at times, but we do the best we can to make our citizens happy. Please vote and get out the vote and municipal elections are not attended well. We need everybody, Democrat, Republican, to get out there and try and get people to vote. Absentee voting is available. Use it if you know somebody who has to use it, but let's get those votes in because some of these races are going to be very, very tight, and the more voters out there, the better. I want to take a minute to recognize a friend of mine, Ernie Anderson, who served as a Creedmoor commissioner from 2015 to 2019. He was a member of this Republican Party, and he passed away on July 21st of this year. The other thing I want to say is everybody in this room, we need you at the August 7th Board of Election meeting at 6 o'clock at Mary Potter School to object to the District 3 seat person that's in there and voice your opinion. The more voices, the better. Board of Education. Did I say Board of Election? Oh, God, I got election. Also, House Bill 142 passed the House, and it is the Protect Our Children House bill, and it is now in the Senate. Please, it's sponsored by John Torben. Please contact a senator and ask them to please pass this bill so that we can protect children from abuse in our schools. Thanks, everybody.
So I just wanted to say one thing about Georgiana's race. She's the incumbent. There are 3 seats open, and there are 3 candidates. So she would be considered the incumbent, presumptively reelected. So she doesn't have to have the stress of the election. Unlike our next guest, Mayor Casey Dover, who does have the stress of an election. Stand Mayor Casey Dover.
I gotta go up with this just a little bit. 4th time. I can't believe I'm doing this a 4th time. I was going to be a one-term person the first time I did this, right? For those of you who don't know, I ran as a commissioner in 2015 and won. At that point in time was the most votes a commissioner had drawn during an election. 2 years on that board was crazy. And I thought to myself, I don't have to do this. I have a real job, right? Commissioner Cole, you remember. But then I thought, and I was going to quit. I thought, you know what? I got 2 years, these people voted for me, and I want to show my face if I don't do this. So I thought, well, I can run for mayor. That's a 2-year term, do the 2 years and get out. So we're going to get 3 people and beat all 3 of those in. And that was my first term. That was in 2017. I didn't have to run. I ran unopposed the last 2 terms. The mayor that I beat in our previous life is back, going to run again. So I looked back on the last 5.5 years and thought, God, what have we accomplished? And I'm not here to beat my chest, but we returned we rebuilt a tremendous amount of relationships with the county that we didn't have before. I mean, it was county for us an event. There was never a county commissioner there. Miss Hinman would show up every once in a while, but I think she was wearing Kevlar and a steel pot when she did because she didn't know what it was going to be like. And we turned that around. We brought some professionalism back to the town hall. A gentleman by the name of Harold Owens, who's with the League of Municipalities. He's from Granville County and was the town manager in Burlington for like 20-something years in a park rec and whatever. He kind of became a mentor. And I called Harold one day. I said, Harold, nobody's coming to my meetings. He said, you're doing a good job, right? Until you use the word ETJ. Then everybody shows up, right? And I realize as a Republican, I think I'm labeled now as a rhino, I think, right? But you know, when you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're looking at South Granville County and you're looking at growing, Commissioner Karen just sent me just 10 minutes ago a house up off Candy Mill sold for $1.9 million with 230 acres. Folks, it's here. It's coming. So it's town of STEM, little bitty small town, 800 yards from the center to the satellite developments. We were able to voluntarily annex 397 acres into the town. We did, absolutely. That was all through relationships. We did that for a reason, right? We want to extend, we're asking for the ETJ from the county, and I don't put you in a hard spot here, right? The reason for that is because we want to determine our own destiny. Yep, but that's the only vehicle that the legislature gives us at this point in time. So that's why we're doing it. It's not, let me see, I've been in the pockets of developers. We want to put in a STEM loop. That was the original one. $500,000 homes. We're going to have a bus and a train system. Can't have chickens. I mean, we've got chickens in town, right? My neighbors have got chickens. Paving all the driveways. Yes, right. That was the other one. We made a first pass at that for people to. Legislature says the way that works is you send a notice, hold a public hearing, pass an ordinance, come to the county for adoption. We held 2 public sessions, informational sessions, because I wanted to be transparent, right? So now it's spun up into all kinds of stuff. Now the Democrats of Granville County have gotten behind. And they are fleeced. They are absolutely actively working to run, and they've pulled 2 candidates to come forward, so good for them. My point being is that municipal elections are super important for our county. We've all made progress. We don't need to back up. My time in office, I don't mean to get, DTG I could talk about all night. I'm tired of talking, actually. I'm ready to get it over with. Since my time in office, 5.5 years, our general fund's gone from $300,000. We just passed an $897,000 budget this year. Right? We have $600,000 in our general fund. Right? We are in the black. We have a little bit of debt. We bought 3 lots downtown. We actually wrote a check for those. And we refinanced it because interest rates were 2.1% in the old days. Right? So we've almost paid that off. We have, I think, 3 more years left on that. We could pay it off tomorrow if we wanted to, but we wanted the money to come to other things. Also in this time frame, we now own both sides of Main Street. We've been able to procure both sides of Main Street, which is very exciting. We also own the house next to the town hall. Our goal is to repurpose that into a town hall. So STEM actually has a proper town hall that maybe someday we can hold this event there, right? The other side of that is the most exciting for me, and I think for Commissioner Cole. 3rd week of August, I think, I'm working with the NC Department of Commerce, Rural Development Group, the Granville County Economic Development Team. I met a gentleman with the League of Municipalities that specializes in financing, public-private partnerships. A couple developers that own some property next to us that want to kind of ride along and see what's happening. Before I leave office, I would love to see downtown STEM get started, right? People go to Oxford, go to Creedmoor, go to Butler, they take their money, they go there and spend. We have people that want to come congregate, and we have a place for them to congregate. And that's my next goal. That's what I want to work on. I want to continue the work we started. We've worked hard to get there. The last 6 months have sucked. It's been terrible. I sat in front of people, shot me in the face for a straight hour, and I had to bite my lip. It was brutal. But it's not because it's what I want. It's what's best for the town of STEM, and that's what I was elected to do. It's what you were elected to do, right? We look out for our town. My personal beliefs are one thing, but what's in the moment, I'm trying to make a strategic decision. Leaders have to make tough decisions, and it was a tough decision to make. And we have weathered the storm, right? Win, lose, or draw, history will look back on us and say, somebody said to me, I thought it was kind of humorous, said, my legacy will be, man, we should have listened to Dover, or man, we're glad we listened to him, right? It's going to be one of those 2 things. And so I hope everybody comes out to vote this next election cycle. 73 was the last municipal election, was the amount of votes. I think we're going to need more than that this go around. So if you've got friends or relatives in the town of STEM that need to vote, please get them out to vote. And Oxford and Butner too, right? So I think all of us are going to need that this go around. Thank you, Mike, for letting me get up here. Thank you for being my commissioner, because you know I love you to death. And I'm not buttering you up. I'm just telling you, you guys are good. And I appreciate everybody's support. Brad, the rest of you, right? It's good. And Ms. Hayes, you got your hands full, and we got a flags in our box that you go to, just so you know. So thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer for you anytime. So thank you. They're 3 miles from their corporate limits. That came into play in 2008.
come down Lion Station, corner of Broadway and Lion, their ETJ coming all the way to 85 in that corner. Our ETJ, what I'm asking you to do is to basically, and look, I'm not trying to badmouth my neighbors because they're my neighbors, they got, love my neighbors, gonna do that stuff, but this is business, this is strategy, right? Look at, this is not next Thursday, it's next 15 years it's talking about, right? My understanding is that development is on pause, 890 homes. But I also understand that it's a pause because there's been some changes in the actual local government, right? From town manager, planner, those things have changed. I also understand that they will come back. For us, what we're trying to do, just for folks in this room, our UDO, Tar River Land Conservancy is very important to us, right? The town of STEM doesn't have a lot of stuff, right? We don't have a mansion, we don't have Lake Rogers or Lake Hope. What we have is Ledge Rock Creek. And it's beautiful if you don't walk, it's 5.2 miles of beautiful hiking trails, right? So for us, our UDO is very important that, and why the ETJ is important to us, is it allows us to protect the south side of the Tar River Land Conservancy on Oklahoma Road. If those 890 homes or any homes developed there, Seguasa is going to have to run water down that road. And if you think about from a common sense perspective, it's going to go all the way to Broadway because they're going to open, water needs to circulate, right? Dead ends are horrible. So if they connect, at some point in time, there again, it might be 5, might be 10, who knows when that will be. Those 890 homes, there will be a stub across from Oklahoma. And at some point in time, that property is going to develop. Again, I may be dead and gone. But when it goes, it's going to go to 75. And that is beautiful property, and it would be such a premium. And I know those people will sell someday if the money's right. Right? So for us, what I worry about, 800, let's just say 800 homes. Let's give them 90. Two cars per household, that's what, 1,600 cars on Lion Station Road? Now, everybody in the town of STEM is going to have to fight that to get to 85, because that's the only way they got to go. So if you look at this from a town of STEM perspective, I don't know this will ever happen. I mean, there again, we know how NCDOT is. They could put an off-ramp right there. So why wouldn't I look out for the town of STEM? That's who I was elected to support, right? And that's the whole, and look, people can say we're never going to sell our farm, we're never, that's all fine.
Until they do.
Somebody passes, and the heirs say, let's cash out and go. Pick up the Business Journal right now. This is my friends on Facebook. Somebody in I work with said, are you yelling at people at the back of the road? Because 500 acres in Chatham County Family Farm, $19.2 million. 1.9 now in Granville, right? $4 million in Knightdale. I mean, it's happening around us, and our head in the sand. It's just foolishness. So anyway, it's tragic.
So I would just like to say about Casey, so I don't know all that much about the ETJ and don't really want to. But I know this. I know that Casey has done a great job as mayor. STEM was in the newspaper every week about some kind of chaos for 4 years. And Casey became the mayor, and it was almost overnight that stopped. And now they're flush with cash, and they're making great things happen. So if Casey says,
What was the name of the previous mayor?
I think it was Renee Green, if I'm not mistaken, who's running against Casey.
Running against him.
For Preserve Granville, so for those folks that find this ironic, it's Preserve Granville, which Preserve Granville, Rural Granville, whatever it is, and as well as all the other stuff. It's going to put a realtor, wants to put a realtor back in office, right? So I thought to myself, wow. I'm trying to make it so instead of 4 houses per acre, we only have 2.
Right.
So it's kind of like.
So all I'm saying is that he's done such a great job. If Casey says that the ETJ is the move and that's what he needs to do to protect STEM, I just said, he'll tell you. I just said, okay. I mean, he's done everything else he's done has been great. So why would this not be good, you know?
One more thing, like I have some elderly friends that live in the proposed ETJ, like right in the heart of it. And I'm gonna say it's really bad, and I'm gonna say it's lightly. Friendships are important to me. People are important to me. Relationships are important to me. If I for just an instant thought that was going to impact those 2 people, you'd have to drag me, kick and screaming because it'd be no. But I know in my heart that this is the right thing to do for that area. It's not, it won't impact them negatively. So that's why I have to march away that way. Right? So anyway, that's just who I am, right? But I've been in the paper 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks, probably.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
When is it gonna come to the county commission?
August 7th.
So, so our next speaker is no stranger to local politics. Lonnie Cole has been a member of the STEM Commission, the fire chief. He's been a fixture, and his dad's been a fixture in the town of STEM. And I'm super grateful that he's been able to come up here and us. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that it reads, it's that you are running for the remainder of the vacant term. So you're the only one running for that. So you would also be the presumptive, the incumbent presumptive. So you don't really, even though there's more than two people running, Lonnie has won. So Commissioner Cole, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. When Casey told me that he got the email that they were going to talk about putting a loop in around STEM and putting the train depot and we'll put a train depot there and a bus station. I said, I'm really disappointed. Why didn't they put an airport there while you're doing it? I mean, let's do it all. Let's do it all. But it's been crazy. It really has. When Lynn called me and asked me about coming to Knoxville, I've never been to one of these before, so, what do I do? And she said, well, you just tell them a little bit about yourself and why you're running for office. And I thought, wow, that's going to be fun. But anyway, I looked around the room. Mr. Crawford's already gone. And I said, you know what? From looking at the people that are in here tonight, I've been in politics longer than anybody other than Mr. Crawford. And that's a hard act to follow. And but I like, they said, I really am glad that he is running for city commissioner. Even though I don't live in Oxford, I'm really glad to hear that. So when I talked to the mayor before the meeting, before we started, he had a list of stuff, and I said, man, I need to scale back on mine because mine is too long. But I'm going to blame it on Lynn anyway. But so anyway, I will start out by reading it word for word, and then if I need to change something, I will. My name's Lonnie Cole, Sr. Thank you for having me. I'm married with 2 grown sons and 3 grandchildren. I'm a Southern Baptist, and I'm old school. I grew up in STEM. I lived in STEM all my life. I raised my children there, and I'll be buried there. It's my hometown, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. I've served my town, my community, and my state. I was in the fire department over 42 years. I served as the fire chief over 32 of those years. I was in the volunteer rescue squad for many years until the county took that over. I retired from the state of North Carolina with over 32 years of service. I was blessed to be able to serve as a STEM Town Commissioner for 30 consecutive years, and I'm really proud to say that no one has ever done that before in STEM, and no one probably ever will again. I'm proud of that. I served with 6 different mayors. That's almost unheard of these days, 6 different mayors. It goes back a ways. Through the years, I've served on various committees. Currently, I serve on the Signs, Streets, Events, and Planning Board Committee. I've been mayor pro and even the acting mayor for a while. There's not much that I haven't done there. I retired from town commissioner at the end of 2017. I was honored to be appointed to fill a vacated position of commissioner in November of last year. And that's a good feeling knowing that the mayor and the commissioners trusted me enough to allow me to once again hold this honorable position. And I take the oath of office very serious. I am seeking re-election. I have contributed a lot to the town. I want to do more. I'm retired and I have the time. And let me give you a little bit of history about STEM now. STEM once had several businesses, including a drugstore, a place that made coffins, caskets, a bank, a high school, a train depot, and stores that sold feed and grain and hardware, among other things. Through the years, it died out. Buildings sat unused and eventually fell in. The school went to Butner. A few years ago, the town started buying some land in the downtown area with hopes to build back a new downtown. I think that's a great idea and would love to be a part of building STEM back. I would love to see more businesses and places to shop and eat. Our residents go to Butner and other towns every day for their needs. Why not have something like that in STEM? I've always been interested in the history of the town, and I've worked really hard to preserve it. The old fire truck behind the post office is one of my projects, STEM's first fire truck. I restored that at no cost to the department. I have a lot of pieces of history myself. I'm working really hard to save the old store in downtown that's over 100 years old. It's the last remaining old building left in town. STEM Town Hall has several pictures of STEM from the past. I've contributed to the collection, and I'm still collecting more pictures. And Al Woodliff from Oxford, he has a lot of pictures throughout the county, and one of the things he does is he'll throw in a picture of STEM, every now and then. And actually, I'm related to him. Maybe I'll not say that too loud, but I tell him sometimes, keep sending those pictures because I really like them. You just can't find them. The grave site of Mr. and Miss STEM, who were the town's founders, it was cleared off several years ago, along with the entire cemetery. It had been overgrown for many years. I had a huge part in getting that done. The town now keeps up that cemetery. I want to help the town build back a better downtown, something that we could be proud of. I want to say that I proudly support law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical services. I thank you to all that serve. I thank you to our military that are active and retired. I also want to say that I'm not interested in town doing any annexation anywhere. That's a big thing with this ETJ. A lot of people have associated annexation with ETJ, and that's not what we're trying to do, and I want to make that public, and I'm not interested in that. I do believe, however, that without a doubt, Granville County is growing at a fast pace, especially southern Granville. I am convinced that if STEM doesn't do something to secure our borders, we will be swallowed up or at least touching borders with our neighboring towns in the near future. And it may not be next year, it may not be 5 years, it's like the mayor said, it may be 10 years, but we're going to come together. If y'all remember, Fuquay-Varina used to be two cities. It was Fuquay and Varina, and that's Fuquay-Varina. And I don't know that that'll ever happen in STEM, but it's going to get close to that, and it's not going to be that long. I love the small town atmosphere that I grew up in, and I want to keep STEM that way. That's very simple. I'd love to continue serving as town commissioner, and I ask everyone for their support in November. And I thank you. I would like to add one other thing. I mentioned in that STEM did have a bank in its day, and I've actually got some of the bank deposit slips, and one that my grandfather put some money in. I think it was 1927. But although the bank is long gone, I do know where the door is that went to the safe. And I told the mayor some of them about it a while back. It's still got the gold leaf letters on it, the Bank of STEM. And that, stuff like that, it fascinates me. And the guy that has it now, it is mounted on his personal safe at his house. And yeah, I've talked to him, hey man, can we get that door, but we don't really have anywhere to put it. And he's not even from STEM, so it's not that important to him. So I think, we may be able to do something like that. But stuff like that is really, really interesting. I didn't mean to bore you. Thank you for listening. And I appreciate everybody's support.
So our next guest, he is a friend of ours. He's been to a bunch of meetings. You probably recognize him. Ed Sosa. Ed Sosa is he is running for one of 3 seats on the Butner Town Council. There's only 3 people running, so he is the presumptive councilman. Ed Sosa.
Good night, how you doing? Appreciate I've been here always. My name is Ed Sosa, Eduardo Sosa. I'm proud to be here with you guys, to be honest. I've been here since 2001. And since you don't know me too much in politics, to be honest, I have a lot of experience in politics. Since 1994, I was a treasurer of the Republican Party, delegate. I went to Washington, D.C. to support some candidates. The commissioner is Fortunio, by that time, is from Puerto Rico, USA. I've been in a lot of commissions here. Human Relations, they don't like me there. I just resigned because Hey, you're the only Hispanic Puerto Rican, but you are Republican. And what the heck? I don't care. I'm sorry, you're recording me. I was current last 6 months in the Park Recreation Commission in Bonner. I'm in the Zoom Planification also in Bonner. I'm coach since 2001, South Granville JV, head coach, assistant coach for varsity in South Granville, coach for Bonner Middle School since 2003 until 2022. So I've been everywhere. Also, I work right now helping with American for Prosperity to improve the quality of life of the family, values of religion, education, everybody, small government, and right now we're doing house-to-house campaign in behalf of the American people. That's what I'm doing right now. And before I do this, I pray to my God, I talk to my son, and I'm not married, I'm divorced, but I call some friends. Mike, he was the first, she was the second one. And about 8 months ago, I spoke with my Henry. He worked with me. I retired May 31st. I got 29 years and a half in law enforcement, state, local, and federal law enforcement. I support the law enforcement. I'm going to have a meeting with the commissioner in Bonner about the issue we're having right now in Bonner. They're not cleaning the areas. I talked to her already. These people up there in Bonner, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to think, I guess. We need to expand the youth. We need to give something for the youth. They don't have nothing going on here. No bowling, no cinemas, nothing. Probably 943 houses going to build. So I talked to the mayor about 2 months ago. I said, what's going on with the water supply 5, 10 years from now? What are you going to do about it? Instead of building houses, why don't you do something more economic, development, so we can create more jobs here in Bonner in the surrounding areas. So I decided after I went to the church, I prayed, talked to my son, and I talked to you and her. I said, I'm going to file, but I'm going to do campaign. We should not say, okay, I filed the document. Your name, sources here, and what else? No. I need to talk to the people. I'm going to go maybe every Thursday or Wednesdays at night. I got a place where I'm going to have a town meeting for the people. I'll talk to her. She's going to be my other campaign advisor up there in the corner. But what I'm saying is we need to outreach. So how we can win the elections if we don't step in the commissions? Doesn't matter is all Democrats. I don't care. I'm the JCP at this moment. And you know what they're doing? I'm leaving soon. They're doing, but they're coming from Durham to do fake IDs for the Hispanic. To be honest, I'm Hispanic. I'm American Hispanic Puerto Rican, but I'm saying, you come here, you have to be doing things legally. You know how to do IDs, and then they come from Bonner for the public safety. With this new, where is it? I hope you should have won. This is the one that one up there in Oxford, he's the one bringing everybody here. Those ministers say, let's do fake IDs. Fake IDs. So for what? Because if the police stop them, we're going to check on them. No, you don't have to check on them for what? If it's illegal, they're illegal, to be honest. So I got to fight with them also, with that in that part. So basically, I appreciate it. I hope you know me a little bit more. I got a master's degree in public affairs with criminal justice, in a minor also in criminology. I got a bunch of certifications. I've been in the Congress fighting for Puerto Rico becoming statehood. There's another issue there. Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but we got a limitation of representation. Taxes without representation is illegal. And we need to fight for the family. And I compromise myself, unity, using the values of the Conservative Party of the Granville County. The other two Republicans are going to be in the same Bonner City Hall. They have to compromise themselves. We can be able to be separate. One unit, one voice. but we have to go by the GOP in the issues in the community, not only say, okay, because I'm a realtor, I'm going to develop, I'm going to sell houses. No. So what is you interested? Are you the interested for the people, or you the interested for the big corporations? They want to sell houses, and like the mayor say, oh, 900 houses, oh, $500,000. What about the people, the common people? That's what we're going to be fighting for. Thank you very much. Good night, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So that concludes our speeches. Thank you all so much. This is fantastic. And now we're going to get into a business session. So.